Strictly Creative is a podcast about how people use creativity to make sense of their worlds through film, sound, images, and performance. Sometimes that world is a gallery or a stage. Sometimes it's a combat sport. Documentary sits right in the middle. It takes something intense and fast, like high-level sport, and turns it into a story the rest of us can step into. Judo is one of those worlds. It's an international Olympic and Paralympic sport, but also a global community, a high-performance combat sport, and a traditional Japanese martial art driven by core values. But what does judo actually mean to the people who practice it, the coaches whose insight and experience are built on years of determination and passion, and those who pour their emotional, physical, and mental energy into the long, unpredictable road of international competition? From athletes chasing world and Olympic podiums to those who have already stood there. Through all the highs and lows in the pursuit of joy, victory, and purpose, in this episode of Strictly Creative, Montreal-based judoka and filmmaker Luke Thomson joins the show to talk about his documentary, What Does Judo Mean to You? A film built around one simple question that opens up the inner world of judo in Canada through the diverse voices of the people who live it every day. Watch the full documentary using the link in the episode description or by searching What Does Judo Mean to You on YouTube. In this interview, Luke tells us what he's discovered when he turned the camera toward the athletes, coaches, and staff around him. Let's jump right into it. We asked him how this project came about.
In October last year, I got injured during training. It was like I think like a few days before Ontario Open, and I tore my hamstring. So it meant I had to sit out Ontario Open and then Quebec Open and Canada Cup later that year. So I'd graduated from film school earlier that year, and I liked the idea of like making a film in a sort of documentary format around judo. Like I just feel it's like there's potential there, and I wanted to like explore that a little bit. And then when I was injured and I wasn't able to compete, I just got the sense that I wanted to make the most of my time off the mat, and so I figured it won't happen. Well, it won't really happen again unless I'm injured, where I get an opportunity to like film fights and film competitions that I would be competing in. So I figured I'd make the most of my time, and I I got permission to film at Quebec Open and Canada Cup, and I had help from some of my film school friends. One of my fellow graduates, Finn Nakamura, we filmed a lot of fights at Canada Cup, and in between we would interview people, and it started off as maybe like just quite a general sort of recounting of the events of both tournaments, and then we'd wrap up each interview by asking them, what does judo mean to you? And like we we loved their answers so much, and we loved how unique each answer was. And so like when I finally got to editing it, and I was trying to find like a direction for all this like footage we'd shot, I liked the sort of having like a more emotional angle. It just felt interesting to me, and I really liked hearing everyone's different answers and like what judo can mean to different people. So that's sort of how the project came about, really.
So you mentioned film school. Which film school did you graduate from?
It's a college. It's called Trebas Institute. So it's a bit of a smaller vocational school, but yeah.
Where is this? Is it in Montreal or in...
Yeah, it's in Montreal. So I
Okay.
started in September of 2023. Yeah.
Okay. So curious to know, like you've experienced the sport of judo through sweat, nerves, wins, and losses, as a competitor. Now you're experiencing it through the lens, through multiple lenses, to post-production, to music selection and editing and this, that, and the other. What did filmmaking show you about judo that you couldn't see as a competitor on the tatami?
Mm. I think what I really liked watching when I was watching back the matches in full, you really get a sense of how like the momentum shifts at different moments in a match, because I really got to like sort of take a step back and like appreciate like matches from an outside perspective and like look at them that way. And like, sometimes you'd be really tight on judoka, you'd see their expressions, and you'd see like you could see visibly like the energy shifts. So if someone like if somebody scores like an early point in a match, you can see how the momentum shifts or how like someone's approach to a match just changes. I found that really interesting. And it was when you're filming from the side of the mat, you can like you you get like the like intimacy of the match, but then you also get like the atmosphere behind you. You get you appreciate the whole environment for what it is. And you know, sometimes the atmosphere for certain matches was so intense, and like you could feel how like that also had an impact on their performance, and how like, you know, the support from like people in the stands, it it helps you like get up quicker after an exchange. And it just seeing how like the sort of ebbs and flows of like different matches was like, I found that really interesting. It was cool to see and to edit.
Now you're capturing nonfiction, you know, it's reality, it's a fight on the mats, and you're yourself, you are a fighter, you're a judo competitor, judoka, and as you just explained there, you're talking about there are moments where the energy shifts. As a filmmaker, when you put your filmmaking, you know, judogi on, and then I was going to say hat, but I'll just say
Yeah.
your filmmaker judogi on. When you put that on, how much is the competitor or the judo practitioner in you fighting the filmmaker in you? Because you're talking about the emotional shift of a match, I imagine, right? When you see a fighter maybe feeling a sense of, I don't know, doubt, maybe feeling, you know, exhausted. Like as a filmmaker, do you tap into both knowledge streams, as in like, oh, I know what's happening here in this particular match, this person's unable to apply a proper grip, they're being out gripped? Or is it more of a, hey, I'm seeing someone who's getting frustrated and I want to zone in and I want a tighter shot of their facial expression?
Yeah, I suppose what I'm getting at is like the like my sort of knowledge and experience doing judo does sort of lend itself to like to then filming it, because like you sort of you have a better understanding of what to focus on, maybe. Like everything's happening so quickly, and like I think having it's, I mean, it's why I really wanted to be there filming like the matches and filming the action, because like I think like having a bit of knowledge like gives you an understanding of what to focus on. Like oh, this like they've gone to ground, and then like it's this transition, so it might develop into this technique or this technique, so you know like when to hang on a certain shot. Like that's I suppose that sort of lends itself to it, and that's where like the knowledge of like judo and like the experience sort of helps me like capture moments a bit better like on film. uh yeah, I think. And then like having an understanding of like who like of the different judoka and the different competitors competing on a certain day, so you'll know like who like what matches are really important and what matches you need to film. You know, you have an understanding of like the bigger names, so to speak, and like and from there you can like you pick the matches you want to film, you pick the people you want to interview afterwards as well. So I suppose that's how like the judo knowledge kind of lends itself to the filmmaking side.
Yeah, it's certainly a huge advantage, you know, for you as a filmmaker to understand the sport technically, and obviously as a fight, you know where the action is going, and you know who's on the mat, what they're capable of. So it's a huge advantage in telling their story. Speaking of story, the key question, the recurring question you asked, of course, was, what does judo mean to you? Now, you've asked that questions, you know, that particular question, pardon me, to many athletes, coaches, and so on. After asking that same question to others for this film, how has your own answer changed? Has it changed? Let me ask you, well, what does judo mean to you?
Okay, I don't know if it's changed so much for me. It's maybe given me like a clear idea of what exactly it is. I've always felt it, but like hearing people put it into words has maybe made it clearer to me, I suppose. I think for me it's just like people talk about purpose and like what their purpose is in life. I feel like judo is what that is to me, and it's given me direction in my life. So it's taking me on this journey. You know, I was born in Scotland. I was born in a small town of 3,000 people, and I started judo in a small uh, village community center, and from there judo has taken me to across the country, across Europe, and then ultimately it's taken me to Canada. And now my life revolves around judo. It's kind of like a structural frame that everything else is built upon. So like having that structure, it it's really important to sort of keep me grounded. And it's not an easy life to live, particularly, training full time and having ambitions in the sport, but it's fulfilling, and that it keeps you going at the end of the day. So I'm extremely grateful to have it in my life, to have that clear direction, that clear structure, and a clear purpose. So I suppose that's what it means to me.
Can you tell us about your small town in Scotland? Just name it and tell us a little bit about the first time on the mat when you trained, or the first time you were introduced to the sport, exactly.
Yeah, so I'm from a town called Melrose. It's in the south of Scotland. It's about an hour's drive south of Edinburgh. It's a small community. It's like very much like rugby centered. It's a really cute, cozy town. Uh, I started judo in this like it was like a small like town, like a community center kind of. I started with the Sportif Judo Club. I was trained under Peter Gardner. He was my coach in Scotland, and I think I was introduced to it. They came into my primary school, which suppose is elementary school here, and I remember they had us gathered in the auditorium, and they had these mats out, and I remember like I wasn't so much into it, funnily enough, but my older sister was really she was really sort of like interested in going. So I was kind of dragged along at first from this workshop they did at our school. So I was dragged along to it by my sister. We went to a practice at the club, and then gradually I got into it, and I fell in love with the sport. But it's funny to look back on those things. Like I really wasn't like it was more just a case of me being dragged along, if I remember correctly. But and then yeah, you grow to love it. It's funny the way things work out, but that's kind of how I got my start.
Why didn't you stick to rugby, man? No, just joking. Did you play rugby as well, or?
I did. I was super into my dad was my coach actually.
Oh,
Yeah, believe it
wow.
or not.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I played for many years. I eventually had to sort of like stop because judo became my such a big focus. But I love rugby. I still watch it all the time, and I miss it dearly. I really do. But yeah.
Do you see any correlations between rugby and judo and other grappling sports?
Yeah, I do. There's like, and uh, I think more so for rugby players. Like, I think training judo and martial arts like has benefits. So like, I remember when my dad was my coach, and I remember he like once after I'd done judo for a while, like he noticed how like certain like he'd see me doing newaza, for example, and then like it came out that like some rugby teams and like national teams were using like jujitsu and judo groundwork practice to like sort of help players get like an advantage in like a ruck situation, like when the ball goes to the ground. And so he started like getting us to drill it too. And it's so interesting, like it kind of lends itself to it a little bit, like having that like that strength on the ground, like having that sort of balance and like it's funny, but like there is some crossover and there's definitely like similar like skills, like having a bit of explosiveness in certain situations. Uh, I'm not sure if it's helped me in judo. I suppose it probably has, but there's some crossover for sure. Yeah.
In terms of your interest as far as filmmaking, what sparked that? Why did you want to go to film school?
Uh, I I think I've always loved movies. Some of my best memories are of like going to the cinema or watching films with my family, and I guess I always saw it as something I loved, but not something I could really pursue as a career until like I remember being like midway through making like a stop motion film with like Lego figures when I was younger. My mom sort of like mentioned the idea offhand, and it struck me. It's not something I really ever considered because it's just something I really enjoy doing. but then it's sort of that, I suppose that lit a spark in me, and then I I made a point of learning more about it, and then uh, moving to Montreal, I wanted to like have something to build around my judo career and around my training, and I was still really interested in filmmaking, and I wanted to delve into as much as I could. So yeah, it's just something that's always been a part of my life, but I do really enjoy the art of filmmaking, and I want to try and just see where it takes me, really.
Speaking of art, broadly speaking, actually, you also do music, isn't that correct? I think you sing and play guitar. Can you tell us about that as well?
Yeah, yeah, sure. It's something I really love to do. It's been a part of my life for so long. Um, but yeah, I've I've been sort of I was discouraged for a long time, and in the last like couple of years, I've picked it back up again, and I love it. I've had so much fun.
Sorry,
Uh,
what do you mean by discouraged? Is someone discouraging you from playing music?
I think I don't know. I probably discouraged myself really. Like
Oh wow.
I just sort of lost confidence just naturally over time, and then like through and I don't know. It's hard to pin down exactly what happened, but like I just sort of I lost confidence, and then I picked it back up slowly, and it's nice having something like you come home from like a long day. It's like training's been difficult, and then you just come home and you pick up your guitar, you activate a different side of your brain, and it's just a fun thing to have on the side, and I love writing, I love singing, I love playing guitar. So yeah, it brings me a lot of joy.
Within your community of judokas, how common is this sort of creative exercise? If it's, you know, singing, playing an instrument, you know, producing a film, and so on. Is it common for these for athletes like yourselves to have a hobby on the side or have creative pursuits?
Uh I think it's more common than people think. Like I think a lot of the time I'd say it's more common than people think, but often I think people need maybe more encouragement to pursue these things. I don't know, like I, I've I don't think I don't think there's many people that are maybe as open with some of
Right.
these things as I've sort of come to be. But I think there's like oftentimes there's like creativity and like it's more common and more ubiquitous than I think people might think in the judo community. And I think it's just a case of like just being willing to like to explore it more.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's something that's possibly very personal for some, that they probably don't necessarily want to share or put it out there. But it's always interesting when we have athletes, dabble into anything creative, and to share that work. I think Gaba from France, didn't he release an album recently, some hip hop album?
Yeah, yeah, I've heard some of his songs. Like, yeah, they're nice. They're sick. I really like them. But yeah,
Would you
it's
recommend? I haven't heard any of his. Is it worth listening to? Yeah.
I've only heard it like offhand, but like
Okay.
but some of it's decent. I found like it caught me off guard. But it's cool. I respected it. It's awesome.
Right on. So in your film, like you interview some big names in Canadian judo, some legends, quite frankly, and Olympians and coaches and so on. People you're basically interviewing that community of folks that a lot of people look up to in this country and abroad, of course. What was it like from being, an athlete, listening to them, to being, the filmmaker asking them such hard questions? What was that shift like?
Uh, I don't know if it was so much of a shift. Like I suppose both like sides of me were kind of it was kind of hand in hand. Like they're both sort of working at the same time. Because when you're forming these questions, it's like you're going off like the knowledge. Well, I was going off the knowledge and like experience that I had. I kind of knew round about what I should be asking certain people, and it was so it's definitely something that helped. And I tried to like be conscious of like of both things, both asking what was necessary for the documentary, and but also making sure like you know this is this is Christa Deguchi, for example. You have to like there's a lot. like there's a lot of valuable information that, like they should have to say it. Like looking back retrospectively over her entire career and everything she's achieved, there's a lot to gain from like asking her questions about like asking her for like pieces of advice on like on that she would offer competitors. There's so it's yeah. I suppose you're sort of using uh both sides of that to really like to extract information, but it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed interviewing them. It was a really great experience.
Overall, would you say interviewing was the best part of the project, or was it post-production, editing and putting together? Was it that collaboration with your partner? What was the funnest part of this film for you?
I probably wouldn't say post production because like there were times when it just became a labor of love. Like it was really like it wasn't all like it wasn't all bad, but like I don't know. I think the most fun part was probably the interviews. It was because some of them were so spontaneous, and I really like that's the thing I enjoyed most, like the spontaneity of certain things. Like Krista, for example, we were filming matches, and then all of a sudden I got a text from Johan Beaton, telling me that like I've just spoken to Krista. She's interested in like she said she'd be down to be interviewed. You have like 5 minutes. So like packing up our gear and then like running to behind the Joseki to interview her. Like that was what I found the most fun. And doing it with my friend Finn, it was a really nice experience. Like it was our like full-time job essentially for a week, just interviewing people and filming matches. So I think like that side of production is probably my favorite, I would say.
You mentioned post-production as being a labor of love. I would imagine would it be fair to say it was the most challenging aspect of the project overall?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Like, yeah.
Can you explain to us as to why it was so difficult? Because not everyone's familiar with, a post-production workflow. And tell us, how much content would you say you've captured? Because the film, I believe, is 32, 33 minutes long, yeah? Like how much
Mhm.
in total, duration wise, how much content would you say you've captured?
Yeah, it's hard to say how much we captured, but looking back, we did 27 interviews and think the interviews averaged like 10 minutes, and we filmed at Canada Cup pretty much every single fight in the juniors and the seniors. Quebec Open, it was just me filming, so I think I captured maybe like uh probably like 40% of the fights.
Wow.
So I couldn't tell you how much we shot, but it's a lot. And that's why it was great to capture that amount of footage, but at the same time that's why it was such an issue, because the first part of the process is like naming files and then like labeling them, like okay, it's this person fighting, and then like like sorting everything into folders for the interviews, both for audio and video, and then sorting everything into like Quebec Open, the U21 senior, and it's so that takes up a lot of time already, and then from there it's you lose so much time doing like things you wouldn't really think of, like
Mm,
sifting through like stock music sites to find music that doesn't sound that sounds like that sounds half decent, because
right.
sometimes you get lost, and you have to look for something with the right tone that fits the scene, so you lose time looking for things like that, and then it's the difficulty of finding like an angle and a direction that's like sort of coherent. So all that sort of makes the process difficult, but it is fun. Like it's not all doom and gloom. Like I get a lot of fun out of editing as well, but at times it gets to you a little bit. I think there's definitely challenges that come with it.
For sure. Like in the edit room, you had to decide what to keep and what to cut. Can you tell us about one powerful moment or story that you decided not to use, and what that choice taught you about the story you wanted to tell? Because post-production is really, it's a lot of the film ends up getting cut out, right? Was there
Yeah,
one particular story or moment you decided to keep out? Can you tell
yeah,
us the rationale for that?
for sure. Yeah, there was one. There were a lot of like interviews and moments like that, the one that sticks out to me is bef like this stuck around until like late into editing, like in the like last week, 2 weeks. But it was Janeska, and we interviewed him during Canada Cup, and his sort of little segment was like at the start of Quebec Open. So like the shots of people warming up, it was gonna be during that little section there, and he sort of introduced Quebec Open. He talked about like his experience fighting Quebec Open as a junior and as a senior and that sort of thing. And then he goes on to talk about what judo means to him, and I had it sort of cut in with this other answer he gave where he was talking about an injury he sustained when he was younger. And I've he didn't specify exactly what the injury was, but like he meant it was a shoulder injury kind of where he was I think doing an ogoshi when he was like 13, I think 12, 13. And I might be so wrong on this, so like but it was something along those lines. And it put him out for 6 months, and he was explaining the effect that had on him and his judo, and how it like put into perspective how much he loves the sport and how much he wants to wants to go far in the sport. And I found it really poignant, and I really liked that part. But just to maintain the pace of the film, I just it just felt a little bit out of place, so I had to leave it out. But I do really want to put it out at some point, maybe as like a just to show people, I think, because there's so many moments like that that were really poignant, really moving that didn't quite make the final cut. But yeah, that's one moment that sort of sticks out to me, I feel.
You mentioned you captured 27 interviews. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's great.
That's 27 separate potential social media posts, like, full length, unedited interviews of, I'm just brainstorming openly here. I'm not telling you what to do, obviously, but
Mm.
I'm sure your community, your audience, be it judo fans or combat sports fans in general, would probably appreciate, hearing those interviews in unedited or slightly edited, you know what I'm saying, from
Yeah,
beginning
yeah, yeah, yeah.
to end, because there's a lot of magic in moments, even if an interview is just 5-10 minutes, right? There's always some insight fans can inform themselves on. Was there an answer to the question, what does judo mean to you, that surprised you or even challenged you on how to see the sport? How did you handle that as a storyteller? Because you interviewed all sorts of people with, obviously, they're all talking about the same sport, but they may have different perspectives. So was there one particular answer that really challenged your, perspective of this sport?
Yeah, it's the one that kind of sticks out to me is it was uh Marla. She's from Lethbridge, my club. We interviewed her at one point, and like by this point we'd interviewed Janusz, we interviewed Johan Bieden, who all gave these really moving answers about like how it's been a huge part of their life. And then we interviewed Marla, and we got to the question, and like she like her answer was it's in the documentary, but her answer is basically just like it's just like so much fun, and that she can't help but like have fun and enjoy her sport so much. And it's after hearing like obviously a lot of the answers we got were super moving and super emotional, but hearing just someone just emphasize like just say that yeah, this sport is really really fun. I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. It was a nice sort of reminder that, like of at a simple level, like why I love the sport and why so many people love the sport, because it is fun. Like it's if you you know sometimes you forget it. You train so hard, you get like a kind of tunnel vision, working towards your goals, and it doesn't become fun. But at the times when like sometimes you'll be training and you'll get that spark, you'll feel it, and you're reminded of why it's so much fun. So I really like that answer, and it surprised me having heard so many deep, serious answers. Just hearing someone say that it's a lot of fun, it's a lot of I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. That was really nice. So it was a reminder for me for sure.
Was there anyone whose answer challenge you in the way that you want to redo an interview with them and almost turn it into a debate?
Mm. Ah, like something I disagree with, perhaps, or
Yeah, I mean, it could be a disagreement because I the selection of people you brought on was excellent because everything from you know legends of the sport, right? That's who they are. They're legends to contemporary, current competitors and up and comers. You did a good job in really representing so many different members of the community as far as competitors. So I as you know as I watched the documentary obviously, so I could appreciate that. I enjoyed hearing that diversity of opinion and perspective. But I'm curious for you personally, is there some, and it doesn't have to be a debate, doesn't have to be like I strongly disagree. It's more, it
mm,
could be maybe a generational view that might be unique to our time vis-a-vis what people thought of the sport 30 years, because it's an evolving sport, right? It's evolved, it's
mm.
a global sport. In some parts of the world it's way more popular than others. So you know what I'm getting at, like there's always different views, if it's a sport, if it's a novel, if it's a song, like what yeah, so I don't know if I answered that question, or I kind of just went off on a rant there, but
Oh no, no, it's no, it's I understand. Like there's a well, there's one question. It wasn't the central question we asked, but like I because of the time we were filming the documentary, there was like a lot of talk about bringing back leg grabs and like the potential for new rules. Like there was a lot of drama around like, oh, they're bringing back leg grabs for the All Japan Championships. It's this huge hoo-ha about that. So I made a point of asking people like how do you feel about the potential for rule changes, and also like uh when we were filming additional interviews in February, it was okay. What do you think about the new rules? And there were a lot of different unique answers to that question as well. None of that actually ends up in the documentary, but it was a real split. Like some people were like, "Yeah, I really like the new rules. I really like the fact that you can score off of 5 seconds from a pin." And then other people were like, "No, it's like it just completely changed Newaza. It's like it's too much of a shift. There's like the lack of shidos for like stepping out of bounds. It's doesn't make any sense." And there's so many different perspectives on it. Some I'd agree with, some I wouldn't so much. Like I'm kind of pro new rules. I think they're pretty good. I kind of like the 5 second Yuko for a pin. And I think everything apart from like the stepping out of bounds, I'm cool with. But like I like talking to people about that. I like debating that sort of thing. So yeah, if I had to bring someone back to like discuss something more in depth, I would it would probably be about that. I think it makes for interesting discussion.
as a filmmaker, where do you draw the line in terms of, because you're capturing, and I've asked other filmmakers this question, particularly when it pertains to sports competitions, and I'm sure you've seen this in other sports. Where do we draw the line between, oh, this is great actuality, this is a great moment, but it's also potentially a traumatic moment, right? Let's call it what it is, because when someone loses a match, and you know there's a lot of emotion there, but there's also the storytelling aspect of like, oh my God, look at that moment, look at that emotion, look at that,
Mm,
you know what I mean? Like there's
yeah, yeah.
10 seconds left, blah blah. Like there's so much there, right? To that you can tell and highlight and reframe in the story as a filmmaker, but not just a filmmaker, as an athlete, as a competitor, as a judoka. When you go behind the scenes, like where is do you have is there a limit, do you think? Are there certain boundaries you draw as to um, respecting the athletes sort of their privacy, or giving them their space? And I ask this because what you're doing obviously is documentary filmmaking, but there's also in that scope, there's journalism, there's event you know, you're doing real life reporting on site. You know, you got that text from your coach telling you, oh, she wants to be interviewed, and you guys had to run over there. You're journalists, right? You're telling the story. So, but within all that, within the scope of nonfiction, visual storytelling, you're portraying reality, and sometimes it can be hard to capture
Mm.
certain moments, right? You know what I'm saying? Like I've seen
Yeah,
this
yeah.
even in the last couple of years. There's been some content I've seen, particularly behind the scene content stuff that I wonder, like, is there a point to publishing that? Like, you know what I'm saying? But
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
it's more of a journalist. It's not unethical because it's all, but it's more of a, well, some might say it might blur the
Yeah, it
lines, or yeah. Please
mm.
go ahead.
Well, it's a really good question. I like because it's difficult sometimes. I wanted to approach it from I want to try and capture it as fully as I could, you know, capturing the wins and also the losses. And it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to keep rolling when you're watching someone who's a friend of yours who you've trained with, you know, in this environment for so long. You've trained with them for the and you've trained with them, and this is the culmination of all their training of a year's worth of training, and you're watching them like maybe not succeed in the end, not succeed at what they were hoping for. So it's hard to roll in those situations. But but at the same time, you know, I wanted I wanted to do as much justice as I could, I suppose. So I wanted to capture as much as I could. I think there is a line. Like the one thing we made a point of doing is if someone was injured, we'd stop rolling. We wouldn't
Right.
film. I mean, partly because like there's legality there, like because I don't think the physios like sign anything to be filmed, and it's just there's that. But it's also like from an ethical standpoint as well. It's
Right.
at that point, I'd rather not. But everything else, like I wanted to try and capture as fully as I could. As hard as sometimes it can be watching your friends lose and you know or fail at what they were hoping to achieve. It's uh yeah, I wanted to try and make it as real as I could, really.
My first thought after watching this film, and I've watched it once. I need to watch it a couple of more times, obviously, to kind of. I have a tendency, like generally speaking, when it comes to documentaries, I need to watch it more than once to really fully absorb it. You know what I'm saying? It's because
Yeah, okay.
there's a lot there. But my first thought was like, when's he making the next one? So that's my question to you. What's your next project? What's your next judo related film or project, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, it's sort of something I've wondered myself. Because when I was deep in editing, I was like, I'm taking a huge break after this. I don't know when I'm gonna do another thing like this. I don't, you know. But now that it's done, I'm like, I'm ready for something more. So I I find it interesting. One thing I find kind of interesting that I think might be cool to do a project on is people moving here because Canada is sort of unique in the sense that like it's like the second biggest country on earth in terms of landmass. So and it has one national training center that people are expected to go to if they want to you know go to the next level in judo. So you have people coming from like Vancouver and like Lethbridge in Alberta and then like from the Maritimes. And you have like people coming from sometimes super far away and from such like diverse environments to this one place. And I find like the move kind of interesting. I mean, it's something I had to go through myself moving from Scotland. So I think maybe like film like sort of capturing the journey of certain athletes moving to Montreal and moving to the INS might be interesting. But uh, beyond that, I haven't given it too much thought. But yeah, I would really like to do another project for sure. It's yeah, this was a lot of fun to do.
Luke, how was that transition experience for you, moving obviously from Scotland? I think for you moved to Alberta, right? When you
No, no, actually, I didn't.
oh you
I'm
you went
registered.
straight to Montreal.
Yeah, straight to Montreal.
Okay,
Straight
okay,
there.
okay.
Yeah.
How was to tell us about that experience going from a small town in Scotland? I think you said it was Melrose to Montreal, Quebec, Canada.
It was it was difficult a little bit at first. It was a lot to take in. It's because I just lived with my parents up until that point. So all of a sudden you're given all this responsibility. You have to you're independent. You have to be independent. You have to make decisions for yourself. You have to uh you know do things you maybe took for granted before when you were living at home with your parents. That now it's like you're saddled with all this responsibility, and then there's essentially a language barrier here as well. So because the Canada I'm used to is Alberta. I have grandparents there, I have aunts and uncles. Like most of my family lives in Calgary and around Calgary. So and I've visited Calgary and Alberta like a lot. So I'm used to to that side of Canada. Like I joke and call it like redneck Canada. That's what I'm used to. But Quebec's so much different. Like it might as well be a different country really. So it, it took a lot of getting used to, I suppose. But and it is difficult like making friends and making connections when like you don't feel confident speaking so much, and it's difficult with like the language as well. It's still something I'm trying to improve at. But it's nice to have like people in your circle that like are looking out for you and are so welcoming. Like people who have been like a lot of the people I do judo with and my close friends. And I've made so many close friends, and now I have people here that I consider family, and judo has given that to me, and I'm extremely grateful for that. So it was a lot to take in, but having people like that around me, it helped a lot. So yeah,
I think that migrant story, that immigration story you speak of, as far as athletes relocating, from across the country to Montreal, would be a very interesting potential documentary, follow up or whatever, because that whole integrating themselves, into a new lifestyle, obviously, um, you know, in one of the best, most dynamic, most creative, and culturally vibrant cities in the country, in Montreal. I mean, it's got a huge arts infrastructure and creative ecosystem there, as well as combat sports and judo. Obviously, I think it would make for an interesting story. For this documentary of yours, who's the intended on? I'm going to pretend to be a producer and be like, who's
okay,
the
okay.
intended audience for this film? Like who's the key audience you're targeting for this film? Is there a key audience?
There is, yeah. I mean, it's just the judo community really, because and the Canadian judo community was my intended audience. Because I think if you're making that sort of content, like that sort of like documentary style content about judo to like a wider audience, you're dealing with like an audience that doesn't really like understand like the sport so well. Because I sort of made it with the understanding that the people that were watching it would understand like the point system, and they'd understand like the nuances of the fights and everything. So I think if I was to make something for a wider audience, I feel like it would. I'm not sure exactly where it'd have to be, but just
Mm.
picturing someone who like is watching it without knowing much about judo, I think there would need to be some kind of not necessarily explanation, but just like it would have to be made with like the understanding that like it's it's just being thrust upon someone who doesn't know much about the sport. So I think that's something I have to be conscious of if that's the audience I was going for. But this is very much made for the judo community.
In terms of post-production tools, what software did you use to edit, and what sort of equipment did you guys use? It was you and Finn, right, who collaborated. What sort of equipment did you use?
Yeah, so we my camera is pretty old, and it's not great. Like I'm very lucky to have it, but it's a bit old. It's a Nikon D3 100. It's a DSLR camera. So all like that's what I use for Quebec Open. So those shots and most of the interviews. And then when Finn came and helped me for the Canada Cup section and those interviews, we used his Canon camera, which is far better than mine. Like it was such a I can't even like it was a morale booster getting to the training camp and the Canada Cup sections where his footage came along because his cam was so much better than mine. The footage looked so much better. But I don't know specifically what the make of camera was. It's a Canon. I know that it's a Canon camera, but
Mm.
I think it's a mirrorless, something like that. But those are the two we used there. And we had some lapel mics as well. I forget the brand. I want to say it's like uh, hmm, it's tucked away in one of my drawers, but they're just sort of lapel mics I bought on
Okay.
Amazon. And then as for the software I used, it was Adobe Premiere,
Nice.
which I've sort of grown up using, and it's a little expensive. I've been thinking of switching to DaVinci, but well, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, that's the software I used.
What sort of feedback have you gotten from people who have seen the film? I know there's some really positive comments on YouTube where people can watch the entire film. But beyond that, what sort of feedback have you gotten from your community?
Um, I've gotten a lot of feedback. It's all been really positive. Which which uh, which has made me really happy to see. Um, it's it's funny. Like I always intended it like for people in the community to see it, but I didn't think it would reach this like an audience to this scale really. So it's been a lot to take in, and it's been really amazing so far. Um, but yeah, it's been really nice. I I like hearing about people's favorite parts of it. I like hearing like a lot of people really love the bit about Janusz, and that was always my favorite part when I was editing and working on it, and how and like his story of growing up in communist Poland and like watching judo through the window. Like I've really enjoyed hearing people talk about that and like talk about the things that surprised them, and the things they learned from it as well. Because my members of my family have seen it, and they kind of know judo because I do it and my sister does it, but it's uh, but they they've learned more about judo and like what it means to do judo through the documentary, which like I wasn't aiming for anything like incredibly. Uh, I wasn't aiming for much really with the documentary, but to hear that like people have taken things from it is uh, well, it means a lot to me and it surprised me. So I'm really happy with that for sure.
Very cool. Do you want to tell us, or maybe not, maybe you want to tell people, hey, just go watch the documentary to get it, but the story about Janusz, do you want to give us some context to that? Because it is a fascinating one.
Yeah. Well, I do love the way he tells it. Like and if I don't know, for those who haven't seen it, I wouldn't want to like I suppose spoil it, but it is a really beautiful story, and it's like a testament to how like deep his passion is and how much the sport means to him. But but yeah, he has a unique. I mean, anybody at INS will tell you he has like a unique way of like of articulating himself, and so that mixed with just like this like incredibly like, cinematic story of him like going to the club and then like being rejected because it's too full, and then like having to sit outside and watch from the window until the winter comes, and his parents making him like a kid. It's it's just so inspiring. Like it was so inspiring to me, to hear someone really just sort of lay out how much this sport means to them and what they were willing to do to be a judoka and to do the sport. It yeah, it was it's something I found really inspiring, and it's the I think that's hearing the way he tells the story is it's yeah I would I think it's worth watching. I do.
Yeah, it really is inspiring. Now, just a few more questions. Thank you very much for your time. I just have a few more questions for you. What is the role, do you think, of a documentarian in this sport? When you're doing your work, what do you see as your role?
Um, I sort of I suppose the role of a documentarian, like in this sport, just to be to capture it, just to capture like uh, just to capture the sport in its reality and stay as true to that reality as possible. Because I suppose what's like maybe I guess what's like sort of missing from like all the content I see to do with judo is like it's it sort of follows the trend of like uh, I'm not sure. It's sort of I think it's like there's an element of like reality that's maybe missing, I suppose.
Hmm.
Like the things you don't necessarily see on like the live streams, the like there's a behind the scenes element that I think could be explored, and like I'd like to achieve that. That's something I'd like to try and do. And I think it's yeah, I that's what I suppose my like the role of someone making a documentary film. I suppose that's what the role would be. But yeah, I think it's something worth exploring. So I'd love to be able to do that. I hope to be able to do that.
Well, I think you have by doing this, I know this is your first film, correct? On
Yeah,
judo?
yeah, no.
Yeah. I,
Mm,
I think I think you have. I think you've certainly you've captured that, and because 5 years will go by, 10 years will go by, and people, this videos, they're going to be available there. People can go back and see it and reflect upon this particular time in history, and you create that sort of archival and historical material. It's always interesting when people go, when regardless if it's a sport or an art form, you go back to content from a particular era, and it's always interesting to see what people said back in those days or how things were. Last question for you. If a young judoka watches your documentary years from now, what do you hope they start thinking about differently as far as about judo, about, their heroes, or about themselves?
mm. I think if someone was to watch it there years from now, like if your young judoka was to come across the video, I'd hope it sort of shows them that judo can mean a lot of different things and it can offer you a lot of different things in your life. Uh, I mean, I think Johan kind of puts it best when he sort of, well, I'd like to think so. I mean, he has the experience to be able to say this, but like how it's an evolution and how it means different things to you at different stages of your life. Like judo means a lot of different things. It doesn't mean one particular thing. For someone getting into the sport, it's a means to stay active. It's a means uh, to meet new people, and then as your career develops, it's something it gives you ambition, it gives you goals, it offers you something to aspire to. You get to see the world, and then if you transition into a coaching role, it's like you get the benefit of like you help others grow, and you get something out of that as well, and it always stays with you. The qualities and values that you gain from judo will always be with you, uh, no matter like how much you do judo in your life. It's so I think there's a million and other ways that judo can impact your life and can benefit you, and I hope that sort of I suppose like I suppose I'd hope that the documentary kind of puts that into perspective that like it can do so many different things for you, and it can offer judoka like a million other things. So I'd like that's why I'd like I suppose to show someone that there's a lot you can get out of it. There's no end to it really. So yeah.
So, Luke, where can people watch the documentary?
So it's up on YouTube. The the link to the video into my channels and my Instagram account. There's a links in my bio. Um, I think Judo Canada posted the link as well, and yeah, yeah, it's available on YouTube though.
For sure. All they have to do is search "What does judo mean to you?" and I guess add Luke Thomson, and they will find it. Correct?
Yes, with yeah, hopefully it should
Awesome.
come up.
So, well, when's your next tournament? How's training going? When's your next tournament? What's happening?
Um, I'm actually not sure. Training's been nice now that like the competitions are over, the pressure's off. So training's going well. it's been fun training without like the stress that comes with competing. As far as my next tournament's considered, I'm not entirely sure. I have to still plan that out. They're planning on sending a team to Belgium to Vise, and which is a big tournament they sometimes go to, and there's a lot to gain from that experience. I know they're planning on sending some senior athletes and some juniors to the Paris training camp as well, which I've heard amazing things about, of course, and that would be a great experience too. But I'd really like to get out of Canada and experience training in places like Japan or Spain. So an extended training block before nationals also really interests me. So I think it's going to be a case in the next few weeks of just like hammering down on my program for next year. So I'm at the stage where I'm not too sure, but yeah, there's lots of options that are available to me at the moment. So I'm really excited to just see what the new year brings me.
Right on. And in terms of filmmaking and even videography and so on, are you doing other non-judo related projects that are, you know, video or film related?
Yeah, I have a I'm working on a shoot in the new year in January, and I'll do odd shoots and odd jobs here and there.
Nice.
But yeah, that's always something I have on the side. So
Man, you're in the perfect city for judo and film. Like Montreal, there's a ton of gigs for videography and so on, and a lot of creative collaboration. And obviously for judo, you're at the INS, you know, can't go wrong with that. Luke, thank
yeah,
you very much for your time today. And any last words, anything else you want to share with us?
no, I don't think so. Thank you so much for your time. I thank you for doing this.
You've been listening to Strictly Creative. If you'd like to see the stories we've been talking about, you can watch the full documentary using the link in the episode description, or by searching "What Does Judo Mean to You" on YouTube. Until next time, and thanks for listening.